and welcome to the webinar. Thank you for joining Curio 412 and AE Works. We are here today with Veterans Breakfast Club, Multiplying Good, and hashtag Love from Pittsburgh today. My name is Carolyn Keller, and I am the founder of Curio 412. We're a consultancy for organizational development, fundraising, evaluation, and strategic planning. I've worked with nonprofits, foundations, other social sector businesses. I'm also currently the past president of the Pittsburgh Philharmonic and a member of the Pennsylvania Cultural Resilience Network. I want to thank AE Works today for giving me the opportunity to be here with so many innovators in Pittsburgh to discuss this opportunity we have in our current situation. To give you a sense of the crisis impact on our community and nonprofit organizations, in attendance today, we have people from throughout the region. Our attendees represent a wide range of nonprofit, cultural, and community organizations, and this crisis impacts us all. Before I introduce all of our speakers, I want to give a quick overview of the format of the webinar. In the window, you'll see a poll tab. We have a current poll to get us started about your stakeholder engagement, so if you'd like to take a moment and answer that poll. The question we have first is, how are you getting your stakeholders to engage with your organization's efforts during a time when so much is going on? So feel free to let us know, and that will give us a great sense of what's going on in your organization and how you're interacting and engaging with the people who value your organization. While you're doing that, this poll is anonymous, and we'll queue up more polls throughout the presentation, so please participate and share your situation with us today. To the left of the poll, you'll see our Q&A. We'll be addressing questions at the end, but please feel free to add questions as you think of them, and then we'll make sure to get to them. If we don't get to them at our Q&A, we will answer all of them and do a follow-up with all the slides and materials from today's presentation. The webinar will be recorded and emailed, so you'll also have that opportunity. And finally, bandwidth is challenging for everyone given the virtual nature that we've gone through, so we apologize in advance for any audio or video issues. We'll work through them as we go along. So with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists for the day. Jody Klevick is the first one I would like to introduce, and she is thrilled to be a person of influence for young leaders as the Regional Executive Director of Multiplying for Good. Her career has been in marketing and community service roles, such as President of the Board for Pittsburgh Urban Magnet Project, Women in Film and Media Pittsburgh, and she's a co-founder and advisory board member of the International Silkscreen Asian Festival. She is a winner of the National Association of Women Business Owners. And if I get the rest of her introduction up, the Women Business Owners Make the Connection Community Service Award and a nominee for Nonprofit Marketer of the Year from the American Marketing Association. She'll be sharing strategies today to engage with stakeholders where they are. Evelyn Castillo is the next person on our panel that I would like to present. She brings over 10 years of experience of event planning and managing in Pittsburgh. She's the owner of Sterling Events and is well known for her attention to detail and the ability to use her creative talents to make each event unique. Evelyn is a trustee for Awesome Pittsburgh, board chair for Multiplying Good in the Pittsburgh region, and a board member for the Mon Valley Community Foundation. She'll be sharing more about the creative process behind the hashtag Love from Pittsburgh campaign, which gained millions of impressions and regional media coverage. Finally, I'd like to introduce Todd DiPostino, who is the founder and executive director of the Veterans Breakfast Club, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to sharing veterans' stories with the public. Over 30,000 different people have participated in the Veterans Breakfast Club program and activities over the past 11 years. Todd is the author of the award-winning Bill Molden, Life Up Front, and 6 other books. He has a PhD in American history from Yale University and has taught at several places, including Waynesburg University, where he has won the Lucas Hathaway Award for Teaching Excellence. He lives in Pittsburgh with his wife and 2 daughters. So I'm very excited to hear from all of our panelists as we move through, and we want to thank them so much for being here today to share their stories. We're going to head on to start the rest of our presentation, and I'll give you a sense of what we're going to go through first. In order to get started, I'd like to do an overview of kind of where we are, share some data from a few different sources, and talk a bit about what people are predicting that new normal might look like. So we will go and look at that new normal as a starting point for us. We will also then move into our panel where we'll talk about creating engagement, delivering experiences, and finally at the end we'll move into our Q&A where you'll have a chance to ask all of our panelists questions about the experiences that they're sharing today. So to get started, I'd like to see if we can predict what some of the data we're going to talk about in our current situation will show. So I'd like to see if we can answer some of the polls that you're seeing on your screen. So the first question I have is, when do you think people anticipate returning to a more usual way of life? And you'll see a couple of answers there, so please select what you think is most likely. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. And then our second question here is, out of factors that are in an organization's control, what is the top factor that will make people feel safe visiting organizations when we're able to reopen? You can go ahead and make those selections. Lastly, I want to offer two divergent points of view. So I know many of us are working at home and we have our furry friends with us and we're all responding to our unique situation in different ways. We all have different personalities, different ways of interacting with the world and responding to things that happen to us. So maybe we're like the dog and we want to work from home forever. We have a lot of energy. We're ready to explore new opportunities. But some of us are more like the cat. We want to get back to normal and we're carefully evaluating everything that's going on in our current situation. And sometimes you might feel more like a dog and sometimes you might feel more like a cat. But today, do you feel more like the dog or the cat as you're thinking about the current situation? So, just gives us a little bit of context for where we all are today. We all keep hearing that we're in this together, and we are all in this together, but we all are in different scenarios. And even the different scenarios that we are in, we all tend to be asking similar questions. So if you have a physical space, when you reopen, will people come back to your physical space? If you're an organization that does a lot of events, will people come back and join your events? When do people think that they're going to come back? Is there a time frame on that? And then how is this environment impacting future plans? Are people thinking ahead? And if they are thinking ahead, how far in advance? So I wanted to share with you some information from Colleen Dillon Schneider and the Impacts organization. They are an organization that researches cultural institutions. And what they have been studying for the past few years is impact intent to visit. And typically what they have found is this intent to visit is something that is more of a predictor of whether or not people actually will. Usually if people intend, they're already making plans, whether that's 1 week out, 1 month out, 3 months out. And so really intent to visit shows what the visitation behaviors are. And this could be extrapolated into a bit larger of a scenario as well. If people are intending to visit a cultural organization, or what types of cultural organizations are they planning to attend, it may give us an indication of what their behaviors might be towards other organizations as well. They have a great website, and they've been publishing twice a week on their different data they've been collecting. And they've been collecting the same types of data week after week. So I highly encourage you to go to their website. They currently have data collected through April 25th. And the data tends to be pretty consistent. When we first had the US declared state of emergency on March 13th, intent to visit cultural institutions went down about 16.7%. And with that, most people were responding to uncertainty. But what Impacts has found in studying intent to visit over the last few weeks is that longer term intentions still remain stable. And what this means for us, to answer the first poll question that we have, is people anticipate things being roughly back to normal within 1 to 3 months, and then maybe fully back into normality within 3 to 6 months. So people are thinking of this system as relatively finite. They know it's not going to last forever, but they are also aware that there will be lasting impacts. So the other thing that they've been collecting data on that has piggybacked on top of that is what will make people feel safe again. And this data has been very interesting. They are listed here in order of the top 6 that Impacts has published on, and there are still others as well. So like I said, feel free to check out Impact's site and Colleen Dillenschneider's site to learn more about that data. The question that they asked most people was, what will it take to make people feel safe visiting cultural organizations again? And they have surveyed roughly over 85 institutions, and it ranges from zoos and aquariums to museums and cultural centers and theaters. And what they have found is that what will make people feel safe again is access to a vaccine, government access restrictions being lifted, seeing others visit, availability of hand sanitizer, organizations choosing to reopen. So within each of these things, there's some things that are within our control as organizations, and some things that are a little bit without our control. But I think the biggest factor that is within our control is seeing other places, other people visit the places that we have. So cultivating a perception that people are visiting, people are safe, that you are in care of the people who are patronizing your institution is going to have a large impact. Another thing that will make you feel safe is having freedom of movement. What Impact has found so far is that organizations like zoos and aquariums that allow people to be more spread out tend to be the organizations people are intending to visit more than places like, say, the Pittsburgh Symphony that would have more of a stationary and confined space. And this is good news for us because there are things in our control. Like I said, you can cultivate that public perception of people wanting to come back. You can share stories. You can create memorable social media moments. And chances are, if you have a audience of people, they have a lot of trust in you already. So if you're planning ahead and choosing to reopen, that choice to reopen alone in alignment with lifting of government restrictions and a few of the other factors that are going to make people feel safe will also make your audiences and your patrons feel safe. There also are some logistical things that we can do, like having hand sanitizer available and having people know that when they come, they will have that option. The one interesting thing that did come out of the research about what would make people feel safe is that they found audiences cared least about your full cleaning procedures. So they don't care if you're wiping things down every day, every hour, every 3 hours, but knowing that there is a procedure in place is important. So I think that it helps us as leaders and organizations to really plan ahead and think about what message do our audiences need to hear. And a lot of it is that feeling of safety, but also the feeling of togetherness and engagement and knowing that other people are visiting and feeling safe in those spaces as well. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is what will the new normal be? And I've spent the last couple weeks just visiting articles and reading about what predictions are out there about what this new normal is going to look like. And I just wanted to address a few that I found that I thought may have larger implications. And I know predictions are always hard because we predicted a lot of things in the past few years in times of crisis. And some of those things have stuck and changed our perceptions. And some of them haven't changed our behaviors very much at all. So in looking at these aren't things that will happen, but they're things that might happen and are good to think about as you think about your strategy and how you might pivot to create a new value for your organization. The first one I wanted to touch on was direct-to-consumer behaviors. Right now, we have a lot of e-commerce and pickup and delivery options and a lot more engagement on social media. These things have the potential to continue as an expectation for customers out of convenience or out of caution, but whatever that reason is, there's potential for these types of behaviors to continue as something in our consumer behaviors, whether that is with a cultural organization or if it's with a small business. Second one I wanted to touch on was work from home or flexible work options. I'm sure a lot of us have been finding out the limitations and successes of working from home. And I think that as we move forward, some organizations may find that some remote work is beneficial for their employees. Some might find it's impossible to do the mission of their organization as a work from home environment. So each of those types of experiences will inform how you want to move forward with your organization. So thinking forward, knowing that that is going to be an influence and that there may be opportunities that you hadn't considered with those flexible work options to help both your organization and those who are employed with your organization. The next one is digital authenticity, and I think that this is a really interesting one. We've seen live concerts. I know Yo-Yo Ma's been promoting live concerts. I've attended a few live concerts as well. A lot of organizations that maybe weren't even thinking about doing something live have done something live with their organization. And a lot of times these events are impromptu, they're not always perfect, and there's a lot of authenticity that comes with that. And typically we're used to seeing curated collections of information over social media. And this more impromptu, authentic form of social media might be something that people will react to and really enjoy. So thinking about what your organization can authentically offer within different mediums will really be influence moving forward. The next one here is design impact, and the photo that is of the door on this slide is an example of what design impact might look like. And this is a design from 2 architectural engineers who have designed a 3D printed device. And this device allows you to open the door with your arms rather than your hands. And so it's reducing the spread of germs in a lot of different ways. It could probably also be useful in other scenarios as well. And there are other design innovations that could emerge. So thinking about how design might be impacted by the way we're thinking about the world is another thing to consider. There's a lot that could go under the next one, which is system and infrastructure changes. I mean, I'm sure we'll see a lot of changes to healthcare, community response, emergency response. I know in a couple other panels that I've been involved with, we've talked about how grocery stores haven't typically been involved in your emergency management plan with a local neighborhood or borough or community, but that may be something that we have to consider if we're thinking about food and supply chains. But in organization, this infrastructure change may be around your organizational operations. I know many organizations that have had to do electronic filing or e-signatures. Your operations and infrastructure changes even within your organization and how you operate may be affected moving forward as well. And then the last one here is just the value of being together. I think we've all been cooped up in our houses for a while, and we all have a sense of what it's like to be with people versus virtually being with people. And there's a lot that you can miss out on when you're not physically with the people you care about. And so people will be, as we come out of this step by step, looking for somewhere to go and be together visually, and somewhere where they can be active and just engage with each other. So thinking about that moving forward, people may have a lot more value on that together time that we have. So that is the information I have to share with you today about predictions, data. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up or direct you to more information that I've learned, but I'd really love to move forward and hear from our panelists and talk about some of the innovative opportunities we're seeing during this time of crisis. So I think I'm turning it over to Jody first. And so Jody, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about what service from your sofa means and that all of the good that Multiplying Good is doing in Pittsburgh.
Thanks, Carolyn. And thanks, of course, all the essential workers, our healthcare professionals and first responders, grocery clerks, all those folks who are doing great things, risking their lives for us every day. They're the people who are out and about, and we're stuck at home. And, you know, one of the good things is that we can still be multiplying good wherever we are. Multiplying Good is a nonprofit organization that was founded nearly 50 years ago by co-founders Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, Sam Beard, and Senator Robert Taft Jr. And we created the Jefferson Awards, which is now, as I said, known as Multiplying Good. It's the national nonprofit that elevates service. At our core, we believe that the power of public service is to transform individuals and communities. And as we face real problems in our country, and the impact is steadily mounting, service matters more than ever. We want to create positive change by helping others to connect one another, provide opportunities for communities to grow, and create, you know, stronger societies and more networked individuals and organizations. So we began by honoring others who put heroes who put others first with the Jefferson Awards, and that's our culmination of recognition service to this day with a big live event every year in Washington, D.C. But that's not all we do. We also work with media partners across the country to recognize and share stories of service from everyday unsung heroes. We work with organizations and corporate champions to celebrate their employee volunteers and to, which it really creates happier, more productive workplaces. And then we also work with our Students in Action program for youth, helping the young people to unleash their power and their confidence and ability to make a difference. And we deliver the skills they need to do it well so that they can become empathetic change makers and global citizens. So, you know, we're coming at it from all directions, trying to make sure that a culture of service is embedded into everything that we do as human beings and in a, you know, civically engaged society. And under normal circumstances, you know, our programs typically involve trainings for our young people, service activations with large groups of volunteers, celebrations like the Jefferson Awards, our public service pitch day for our young people to talk about what they've learned and done, fundraisers, and of course the annual prestigious Jefferson Award ceremonies. But as you know, in the wake of COVID-19, we've been forced to be at home, and isolation and disconnection from families can make us feel powerless. But you know, you're not. Service from our home can happen. Service reconnects people to their communities and makes networks of support. Excuse me. And so now's the time we figured, how can we make sure that we get a chance to keep people doing these activities while they're limited, and make sure that they have an opportunity to bond with their families and others through an online community. So our amazing staff at the Multiplying Good Home Office transformed our in-person service activation into online with training and opportunities to help our constituents and folks everywhere thrive in these trying times, and created Service from Your Sofa. Service from Your Sofa is a group of projects that support those most impacted by the coronavirus and that families can easily do from the comfort of their home. The Service from Your Sofa ideas bubbled up from our partners, the communities which we all work and live, our past Jefferson Award recipients, and our youth leaders. As you can see from the previous slide, you know, our outgoing communications from our communications team set the stage that we were going to go social. And then we started working on projects online so that other people can get engaged. The first was Love Letters for Literacy. It's a literacy project that can use to bring joy and hope to those who need it most by helping youth out of school to gain or build literacy skills. And that means that people at home can create simple packets for pre-readers and early readers, and share them so that little kids can still keep going on their literacy path. 3 family fun projects also came from one of our Students in Action alumni, Abigail Elsey, who you see on the right. Her project is leads kids out of the boredom by doing projects such as writing cards to other kids who might be sick or in the hospital, creating sidewalk art, and saying thank you to our postal workers and sanitary workers. And we also had a project called with Time Slips, where we worked with an organization dedicated to bring meaning to late life by sending correspondence, care cards, and art to bring joy to older adults and their caregivers in nursing homes. And as you can see on the next slide, these toolkits that we created went out and people could go to our website and download and activate them. And our folks from our Students in Action team here in Pittsburgh at West Allegheny High School did just that. They went out and recognized residents in the nursing home. And then one of the great things that the project allows us to do is have this online community where everybody can celebrate and participate. So they took photos and shared their story at our Pittsburgh for Good Instagram page, and using the hashtag Multiplying Good and Pittsburgh for Good. And we've made this accessible to everybody, and it's really a chance to do something meaningful that makes you feel connected and gives you a sense of purpose so you don't feel helpless, right? And this was something we had to do on the fly while we start to figure out what are the other things that we can do in the coming months to get back on track with training, events, and celebrations. But it's been fun to be part of this pivot and to see how this change has happened, and really great to be part of an online community as this goes forward.
That's great. Thank you, Jody. Next, I want to ask Evelyn, one of the creators of hashtag Love from Pittsburgh, to share how she helped create a campaign that brought people together in a time when we were so apart. So,
great. Thank you. I just want to thank AU Works and Curio 412 for having me on this. And also to segue off of Jody's thanks to all our essential workers, this is why we did hashtag Love from Pittsburgh. It was started by an idea from a friend who lives in London where they were doing the clap for carers. So they would go out every Thursday night, 8 o'clock, and do a round of applause for all the National Health Service. So she called me and said, have you heard of this? I went, no, but let me look at it. And I said, well, why can't we do that here? And so I said, well, we can do that here. And I just basically called and emailed a bunch of friends and contacts, people in the event industry, because nobody's doing anything now because all events have been canceled. And within 3 days, we set up, the hashtag Love from Pittsburgh, contacted, building owners, contacted our friends, and basically set up our first illumination ovation set for April the 7th, where everybody went out at 8 o'clock and we all went and did a round of applause for our essential workers, because I think it's important that the healthcare workers are great, but also being able to just acknowledge all the people who are keeping us at home safe it touched a part of my heart, because there's people that are out there doing all these different things. So we had an amazing outpouring of support. A number of buildings downtown lit up for us. We had people sharing this, University of Pittsburgh shared it. They had, over 100,000 likes. We were the top trending thing on Tuesday night on the 7th. So we did it again on a week later, and then we're doing it every Tuesday, probably on a smaller scale, but everybody's still going out. It spread to different neighborhoods. But for us, it was just a way for us to show appreciation, to build community, because we can't get together, but it was also easy to do. Turn on your porch light, go outside, give a round of applause, do a hail to your neighbor and say, how you doing, and check in. And then it was so accessible. And I think that's what people needed at the time. So that was Love from Pittsburgh. We're still doing it. Other cities, New York City is doing something every night for the healthcare workers, but it's a quick way to just acknowledge everybody, but also to see your neighbors and connect.
Thank you, Evelyn.
You're welcome.
And then lastly, I'd like to invite Todd to talk about Veterans Breakfast Club. With everyone home, we're all creating unique experiences. And Todd's going to share more about how Veterans Breakfast Club has successfully launched their VBC at Home, which is their new online platform to help keep their mission going. So, Todd.
Yeah, VBC at Home is really the outgrowth of a recognition that I think we came to as a staff on March 13th, that this COVID-19 crisis is really an existential threat to our organization, because what we do is live veteran storytelling programs that are open to the public. We started out 12 years ago as a kind of a seat of the pants, very part-time operation with 30 World War II veterans in the South Hills. We met at a hotel ballroom and just a ballroom and had them pass the microphone and share stories, and kind of just grew organically over time. And I'm going to share my screen just to show you kind of give you a sense of the variety of places we have events. These are from the past year or two. We'll hold an event in a church basement, in a bar, at a restaurant, at a banquet facility, kind of anywhere where we could get microphones in and some food served. And we usually get between 50 and 250 people at our events. And you never know what you're going to hear. We have young vets, talk. We have older vets talk. Here's one we had at Point Park University, a Korean War veteran who you can see all those hash marks on his sleeve. He's in the Army for a long, long time. Carl Jenkins sharing stories. We get World War II vets come that talk about their experiences. I think often of Pamela Mitchell, one of my favorite veterans who passed away pretty shortly after this event, when she stood up and talked about her experience with military sexual trauma in the Army, and yet talked about how much she loved the Army and how it just meant so much to her. Vietnam vets are kind of the plurality, I would say, of the generation of veterans who share stories at our events, but we get a lot of younger vets who come, and especially in our evening events, to to talk about their experiences and also connect with the older generations. And all our events are open to the public. We want non-veterans to come. About 40% of the people who come to our events are not veterans, and all of a sudden, we have 75 events on the schedule for 2020. I mean, we about 40 different locations, and all of a sudden, boom! It's just like gone. And so we kind of recognized early on that this is going to be probably a crisis of long duration. So many older people come to our events. We know that they're going to be the most vulnerable population. They're going to be hesitant to come back. So we kind of quickly figured out, like, let's try some kind of a virtual event, a kind of a town hall where we could take the temperature of the community, get a sense of what the needs are out there, and see, let kind of crowdsource what our options are. We weren't super active on social media, but we had a Facebook page and Instagram account, and saw immediately that Facebook was our most active social media. So whatever we wanted to do, we knew we wanted to live stream on Facebook. So we assessed some options, picked a platform called Crowdcast, held a town hall, and I asked, like, how are you doing? What are the needs out in the community? Tell me about what your experiences, being isolated for these past, at that time, 11 days or so. And what I found is nobody wanted to talk about any of that. They wanted to come on and talk about boot camp and, their experiences in the military. And it was just like, we got that vibe of our events where people kind of wanted to tell a funny story or wanted to tell a poignant story, wanted to remember somebody. And it was just great. And like immediately after that event, we thought, okay, we're just got to start doing our breakfast virtually. And so we fell into this pattern where we do a Monday night event at 7, and we do that on Zoom because that is the kind of like the free form chaos of Zoom. It kind of replicates some of the spontaneity that we get at our live events, at our face-to-face events, I should say. And then we do a more formal program on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. We do that on Crowdcast and live stream it on Facebook Live. And that's more of a kind of a talk show format, more of a webinar, like this kind of format, where we call on 3 veterans, maybe over a course of an hour and a half, have some stories back and forth, some Q&A. And then we also do just a 1-hour Thursday morning coffee from 9 to 10, and on Zoom. No agenda, no program, but people make announcements and can connect with one another. And of course, we knew that younger veterans would adopt to these platforms very easily. But we also knew that the challenge would be the older veterans. I mean, probably half of all conversations I have every day are with people who are 70 and older who want to know, like, how do I get on Zoom? How do I get on Zoom but not be seen? Like that kind of thing. And I've been absolutely delighted to be in these Zoom meetings with, 40 Vietnam veterans and older who have never used Zoom before, but who love it because, I'm 54 years old. I'm old enough to remember Dick Tracy and the watch, the television watch. I mean, it's like sci-fi come to life. And they're, waving to friends and, making jokes with one another. And you do get this sense of community that is coming together, through Zoom and through Facebook Live. And so we know that whenever we do get back to live events, this kind of digital programming, social media programming is going to be part of what we do going forward, and also part of how we kind of expand maybe our footprint and our reach.
Thank you, Todd.
And that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you, Todd. So great stories. Before we get into our Q&A, I just wanted to take a look at some of the poll results that we had. It seems like the top 3 things that your organizations are doing are at-home virtual experiences, increased social media presences, and email campaigns. And there's a lot of great things that we can do using those mediums. And as we get into our Q&A, we're going to ask a few more questions about how to foster that engagement. The other 2 polls, I think I've already answered going through my data, but our last, looks like we have a lot of dogs with us today and a few cats as well. So we've got that going on, which is exciting. We're all very interested in reaching out and having different opportunities, even in a time of crisis. And I think that is a real great thing to have in a time when you need to have resilience. And so I think as we go into this Q&A, my challenge for everyone who's here is to create the new normal. Things are going to happen, and we're all wondering what the new normal will be, but our actions can influence what that new normal looks like with the adaptations we make, the flexibility we have. So just seize these opportunities to be creative. There's lots of ways to diversify your opportunities in fundraising and engagement, in the services you offer, and fulfilling needs that your audiences have at this time. So with that, I'd love to get into our Q&A. I have a few questions myself to get things started, but please feel free to put things in that Q&A as we go along. The first thing that I wanted to ask out of our panelists here are, what are some of the things that you've discovered about your organization during this crisis? And Todd, how about you get us started with that? It sounds like you discovered some interesting things.
What I discovered, yeah, I've discovered very interesting things. You know, our mission is to create communities of listening around veterans and their stories, and we always say to connect, to heal, to educate, and inspire. And I think I've always understood, I'm not a veteran, I've always understood the education part of it. That's how I got into the Veterans Breakfast Club. Certainly very quickly caught on to the inspiration part of it. The healing and the connecting veterans with the larger community, it's a need and a challenge, because a lot of veterans have had extraordinary experience in the service, but non-veterans like me have a hard time relating to it, or even knowing how to beginning to talk to veterans about their experiences, especially combat veterans. So that need to connect, which can lead to healing, is, you know, that if you don't have that, that's a really profound need among our veterans. And I think I'm a little surprised at how so many of our older veterans especially are willing to work through whatever technophobia they have, whatever resistance they have, you know, to embracing this technology, to make those connections and connect with others. I think that power, that need to connect, is so important. That we're you know, necessity is the mother of invention. We're inventing ways to connect with one another. And I'm kind of proud of our staff and our board and our volunteers to be resilient enough to realize, you know, this is an opportunity really to connect people and serve needs in a new way. And that we should take advantage of it. And I'll just say one more thing, that I'm also proud that as a staff, one of the first things we did, I think, was to assess what is the need. What are the needs out there? It's very easy to go into, oh my gosh, we're gonna die. You know, as an organization, we're gonna you know, this is gonna be a threat to us. It's very easy to worry about, you know, protecting the organization. But I think the most beneficial response is to you know, reach out, is to kind of, we'll survive if we meet a need. We'll survive if we're continuing to be vital. And, you know, we just immediately saw people do need to connect. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're helping other organizations hold meetings like this, webinars, Zoom meetings, you know, VFW's, Legions, Vietnam Veterans Incorporated, Vietnam Veterans of America. You know, we want to help them have their membership meetings, have their board meetings, because they might not be equipped, you know, to hold Zoom meetings. We want to be able to facilitate that interaction for them. We want to meet that need. So kind of identifying what needs are out there that your organization is equipped to meet. That's a really important step.
I've heard that from a few different sources as well. And thinking about, we all have to-do lists in our organizations, but thinking about what that need is and what result and mission you're trying to achieve, and then working towards that versus working towards needing to check all of the things off of your operational list. Right. I know, Jody, you can probably speak to this in your organization in discovering a lot of new ways to promote service in an online forum.
Yes, well, back to Todd's point, you know, connecting is healing, and connecting is really what people do when they're participating in service, right? You get to know other people, you get to understand where they come from. And we learn empathy by walking in their shoes, right? If you spend enough time making sure that people have food, you start to understand what hunger and food deserts are about, right? So being able to provide opportunities really is key to making sure that we stay with our mission, right? Because that's still what we're all about. Service is an antidote to the tough times. It's not a literal antidote to the virus, but it sure is an antidote to the effects that it's had on people's circumstances, right? And so being able to respond to those needs and stay on focus with the mission is really something that I'm really excited that we were able to do. It went back to listening to the community, reaching out to our partners and constituents, and we're working on similar projects because of that listening tool, so to speak.
What new opportunities do you all think are possible moving forward? And Evelyn, you might be one of the most creative people I've talked with throughout this whole thing. Every time I talk to you, you have a new idea. So I'd like to start with you about new opportunities.
Well, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot more collaboration. You may see more partnering and sharing between different nonprofits with common goals and common constituencies. I think in the event world, with event planners, there's a ton of collaboration that goes on. We bounce ideas off of each other all the time. We actually end up creating our own ideas. But I think what you're going to see is that people are going to find different ways to achieve fundraising goals, engagement goals, but also just meeting their mission and getting those, getting their, what do I want to say? Getting people involved with them in different ways. And so I think, the whole thing of being virtual and pivoting to some virtual hybrid events are going to come into play a lot more, so people can get across their messages in more ways than we've ever seen. And to your earlier point about live recordings, there's a lot of authenticity in that. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. There's nothing that's going to replace an in-person, face-to-face event or interaction, but I think you'll see organizations moving to different ways to engage folks into what they're doing. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I think it can be really good because you're also meeting people where they're at.
Right. You talked a little bit about partnerships too, and I think that's something that I see coming out of this, if not already, is that a lot of places are looking to partner and collaborate and really be more engaged with one another. You talk a little bit more about how that looked for maybe hashtag Love from Pittsburgh, and Todd and Jody, please jump in.
Okay, so for Love from Pittsburgh, one of the things that we did not want to become is we don't want to become a nonprofit. We want to be kind of a resource for people to meet needs. So we have a Facebook page, and we'll post things, let people know what the needs are. We are contemplating, because we've had so many people ask us about it, selling T-shirts, but we are going to do that, but we're going to be fairly mindful, and we're going to pick some of the smaller nonprofits that are in dire need of funding right now, and they don't have the louder voices that you hear. So we're going to potentially, direct all the proceeds to them, because I do not want to be dealing with that kind of stuff. So because people want the T-shirts, they want the logo, they want the hashtag, because they're so inspired by being able to just participate.
That's great.
And I would say, service cuts across everything, right? It would be crazy to try to do this standalone, right? We work with lots of partners and collaborate with folks because everybody needs a helping hand wherever you might be, right? It doesn't matter. I have schools that have very high rates of suicide, and then I have schools that I work with, communities that that people just need to go out and take care of the environment. It doesn't really matter, right? Service is an opportunity to help across the board. So working with collaborative partners is the key to the success. And even in this time when we can't be together, we're still focusing on our Pittsburgh for Good Instagram page by highlighting service stories and sharing good news of other ways that you can get involved with people who have, whether it's the Western Pennsylvania Diaper Bank, becoming a buddy to a senior, right? There are opportunities that help to fulfill our mission, and they don't happen in a vacuum.
You know, my first job is as a historian. And as a historian, I know that crisis historically disrupts normal operating networks and communities, kind of shakes things up. And I see that happening already where, you know, we had these communities that were getting together at 40 different locations, and now we can't get together again. So we have this new virtual place to meet. And it's disruptive in the sense that some of the old people come, but a lot of new people, a lot of people from there, a lot of people. It's like a new community is being created because of the crisis. New networks, new relationships. I'm finding out about new needs, you know, out there that I would not have heard about otherwise. So it's by necessity, you kind of recreate these networks, but they're never going to be the same as the old networks. And that's kind of opportunity. That is, and that's collaboration. I mean, the Veterans Breakfast Club, we really exist because of collaboration. You know, the most primal, most important needs out there, for example, are masks, food. Pretty soon it'll be utility bills, rent. Those are needs that we can't meet as an organization, but we can help connect people to the organizations that do meet those needs, and we can help get the word out, you know, about a food distribution event or a, you know, or people who are making masks at home, you know, that can be taken to guard and reserve bases. So you know, we can play that role. So I think it's really important to kind of identify what role can you play, what helpful role can you play, and what collaborations do you need to play that role?
Definitely. Just wanted to remind everyone about the Q&A slot. I haven't seen any questions yet, but if you have any, please feel free to put them in. The one thing I'm thinking about listening to all of you talk now, if you had to identify, what do you think would be your biggest pivot in this whole process of addressing new challenges?
Kind of embracing a slight pivot to, you know, hybrid events. As an event planner, you know, there's nothing more valued than face-to-face interaction. Being able, for nonprofits, being able to get your message out by presenting the faces of your organization and who you serve and who benefits from what you provide. I think nonprofits are going to have to really do a hard think about events in the future and how they want to present them, whether they want to, you know, doing a larger gala is probably not going to be something that's feasible until next year. I hate to say that. But it's the reality of the times. Until there's a vaccine, until there's, you know, reliable testing, you know, we can't really go there. I think this is a really great opportunity for nonprofits actually to really think about what do they want to present? How do they want to present that? Is it going to, you know, a virtual event where you do a pop-up event every quarter or something short and sweet, but that you can get a lot of, you know, a lot of engagement with. But it's also important, you know, just also making sure that you highlight the faces that your organization, you know, serves, because I think that's the biggest thing, is you need to have that part of what you do visible. That's why Todd's thing with the Veterans Breakfast is so cool, because they're telling their stories and they're interacting with each other and they're interacting with the public. So, you know, it's, my pivot is going to be just trying to figure out how do you negotiate the virtual world. You know, I've done a little bit of it, but I think it's going to become part of the normal culture. Is that good or bad? I don't know. Nothing replaced in face, but realistically, you know, nonprofits still have to make money to keep their doors open to help the constituents. So, you know, you got to figure out where that path is, and nobody knows because everything's so uncertain. So, But I think adding some virtual events to your repertoire. I saw something the other day called Zoomatopia, where it was a free for all event. Everybody, it was like $20. You enter. You talked about, what you loved about an organization. You made your own cocktail. They sent out cocktail recipes, and you put on a piece of festive clothing. Because we're all in our t-shirts and sweatpants, so why not? But it was fun because everybody was engaged, and it was a way for people that didn't know each other. So the chat side on the Zoom was really robust. Changing ideas, talking about this, that, and the other thing. So doing these really targeted but different events might be a way to engage and move forward.
I would agree with that. The online opportunity has really helped us to get closer to all the constituents and their affinities, right? There are groups of people who really want to focus on veterans, right? There are groups of people who really want to focus on, taking care of pets, and shelters and providing, services for a variety of causes, right? So the crazy thing is, with the online opportunity, we have this chance to tell our stories in an even more personal way, right? Because as a nonprofit, you are always storytelling. You always want to make sure that people understand why you exist and who you're helping, and be inspired to participate and to donate. And with these online opportunities, right, folks are stepping up and sharing their insights, sharing their successes, asking others for help, teaching others. We've had online opportunities on how to make a mask, right? We've had chances for our students to come in and do takeovers on our Instagram account and talk about service. We're having one of our high schools next week will be doing that, talking about mental health, because that's a project that they've been working on for our Students in Action program. So surprisingly, the pivot of everyday events feels like, oh, we're missing something, but we're actually gaining something along the way by having new people engage with us that we wouldn't have met otherwise.
My biggest pivot is embracing social media. I've had an aversion to social media, ever since it started to appear. Don't have a Facebook account, and just having to kind of dive in, with both feet and embrace it. And it's been good. I've liked it. I'm surprising myself that I actually don't mind it that much. We had a Zoom event Monday night, probably a little under, between Facebook Live and Zoom. There were probably about 100 people on it. We had a 98-year-old talk about serving in the Aleutians in World War II. We had a 96-year-old talk about combat on Okinawa 75 years ago, and what PTSD was like when he was experiencing it in 1945, 1946. We had a 95-year-old who served in the Navy. And then we had a couple 30-somethings who are Marines who both served in Iraq talk about that. And kind of they're talking directly to, the 96-year-old who's on Okinawa, and are thrilled by it. And there's a bond that's being generated here remotely, on Zoom. And it's kind of chaotic and kind of a free-for-all. And people are chiming in with, but you see people nodding and really listening and really being attentive. And it, as a host, it's really helpful to kind of mute all, when somebody is talking about something as, delicate as PTS. And then people were very good, and they kind of caught on to, okay, I'll unmute myself because I have a question or want to make a comment. And one of the highlights was, after this wonderful session, we had a woman, Irmgard, who had been on our formal program before because she grew up in Nazi Germany during World War II, and told her story about that and marrying an American GI and coming to the U.S. She closed us off playing the accordion, a German drinking song on the accordion, and everybody had their drinks and going like that. So it was a delight. It continues to be a delight to kind of discover new ways to engage as a community.
I'm taking a little bit of a turn, but something we haven't touched on yet. Evelyn, like you said, people are going to be, and organizations are looking at, how do they engage their stakeholders, and we still need to fundraise, and we still need to accomplish our missions, but in different ways. So in terms of diversification in your strategy, either with engagement or fundraising, how are you pulling all of those things together with your organizations to help keep that drive for your mission strong? And Jody, maybe you, or Evelyn, maybe you want to start, whichever one.
For me, it's it's just talking, continuing conversations, giving them ideas. One of my organizations, we had to cancel, a student-centered event. And my suggestion to them was to just highlight each student, in their social media, talk about what they're going to be doing, and continue that conversation. But it's mostly, talking is an amazing way of coming up with ideas. And this, and Jody knows this, because he'll say something and I'll just say, oh, I have an idea. Because it's and it's really interesting how this virtual interface has actually augmented that process. So I think organizations have to continue to have conversations about how they want to fundraise, and how they want to spend those dollars fundraising, because a lot of organizations don't have the bandwidth to do large events. So doing smaller fundraisers, which in the coming months is probably going to be the best thing to do, because you can have a larger space, have fewer people there, have some of your stakeholders there, but you can create that into a hybrid thing where you have people on a screen, people are interacting in different ways. Mm-hmm. So it's mostly just talking, and then figuring out where your greatest needs are. I think when nonprofits, as Jody and Todd both know, and you as well, it's trying to pinpoint, how do you go after those dollars? Is it grant writing? Is it, is it foundation money? What is it? What does that look like? And but to grow, you need to engage more people. And I think, for better or worse, COVID-19 has opened our eyes up to different possibilities.
Yeah, I would build on that to say that I'm going to give you a word that you would never expect to hear about being online, and it's intimacy, right? Mm-hmm. Every single person I know has had to be in front of the camera like we are now, in a place that they used to think was their hideaway away from work, right? And we're in people's homes, right? We're having intimate conversations one-on-one. We're wearing silly hats and drinking cocktails and drawing pictures with kids, right? We're learning the tough thing about education and how much we need resources, and we're learning about inequalities and equity issues, right? We're having an intimate look at the world that is actually a privilege to understand that we could stop and pause and pay attention. And so that intimacy, that is an opportunity to be engaged with not just our constituents, but anybody else who could benefit from participating with our mission. That gives an opportunity to have a direct conversation with the donor after you hear the story live from someone else. Right. How their participation with our mission has impacted their life. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that the engagement is now come down to much more intimate level, right, and much more one-on-one. We might not be looking at each other in the eye in person, but we are seeing much more than we might have seen if we just had a quick business meeting in a coffee shop.
Right. I've noticed more intimacy in our virtual events than in our live events. I think veterans, there's that space that allows, I think, some veterans to go deeper into their stories quicker on Zoom than when they're standing with a microphone in the middle of a banquet room with 150 people. And so that's been a really neat thing to be a part of. But as far as our revenue stream or diversification, we've benefited from a diverse revenue stream. But I mean, one stream is completely dried up, and that's our sponsorships. We're not holding live events. We're not having sponsors. We're not going to have our gala. And we have just begun to start having that conversation. What are sponsorships going to look like going forward? This is an ongoing story for us. We're just starting it really right now, because our focus was to get the programming up and running, meet the community needs, and now let's figure out what business model can we construct out of this new world. So that will be an ongoing conversation. And I'm sure it is that way for all nonprofits.
Definitely. I'm looking at our time, and I want to be conscious. I know we have a contact slide that I want to make sure we get up in case anyone needs to leave. But it has our contact details for myself and AE Works, as well as our panelists, Jody, Evelyn, and Todd. Please follow us on social media. I know we're all doing great things in our organizations, and I know AE Works and I will be posting tips and stories to help everyone to think through the new opportunities that we have. I know it's 12 o'clock, but I wanted to ask you all one final question, which is what has been sort of the best moment for you out of being in this situation, whether that's with your organization or something personal?
Oh gosh, we did a Facebook Live event that was hosted by Abigail, who's, like I said, one of our alumni members, our Students in Action, and I hadn't really participated in a live event before. I'd seen them, but I hadn't really stuck around because it's new to me, and while she was doing it, someone asked to have the opportunity to speak, and it was a 5-year-old who was trying to figure out how to work on a project, and I was just like, that's it. That's why we exist. We're building that culture of service from the ground up, from 5-year-olds all the way up. So, and it's social media is making that was really cool.
I'm going to be mercenary and answer your question. I'm going to give you the answer that I want to give that doesn't actually answer your question, and that is we're doing an event. I think one of the most satisfying things is taking the lead on Memorial Day. Memorial Day is going to be Monday, May 25th. It's one of the most important days on the calendar for veterans. For many of our veterans, every day is Memorial Day. The public is asked to remember those who died in service one day a year. It's unthinkable to allow Memorial Day to go without some kind of public ceremony or recognition. We can't do it face to face, so we're doing it virtually. We're planning it now. And if you want to join our planning, you can go to rememberingtogetherpgh.org. That is the site that we've created for a dedicated Memorial Day virtual event that we're going to have involving the city of Pittsburgh and the county and soldiers and sailors and all the communities in Western Pennsylvania. We want them to get involved. So that's been the most satisfying thing for me.
This is from Love from Pittsburgh. It was just watching the outpouring of support from everybody. People posting their photos, the pictures of downtown being lit up, people's homes being lit up, all the homemade signs. It was just a really touching way to see everybody kind of connected in a way that we can't be. And that's what I think that's the most important thing out of this whole thing is creating those connections so that people have that sense of community and solidarity, even as we stay at home and stay safe. So that to me is the best thing.
Yeah. I was thinking about how I might answer this question myself, and I don't think it's one thing. I think it's seeing all of the good things that every organization has stepped up to do and the new opportunities people are making and taking. And so I appreciate all of you for being here on the panel today. I know that we're running a little bit over, so I want to thank everyone who's joined us for the webinar. I hope you stay safe and stay healthy and look for new opportunities, make the new normal and have fun with it. So thank you all again, and hopefully we'll see you soon at a point in the future.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.